what were your options at when you were 18 in terms of what you might do with your life?
Well, I had absolutely no idea, and my options were, get some quick, fast job, probably physical labor, to to earn the bread. And
where were you?
In Australia.
Okay.
I had an opportunity of going to university. I'd finished high school, did average, but passed. Really hated school, and I could have gone into journalism or. The other option that was open to me was sort of auditioning for a drama school,
right?
Which I did. I could tell jokes and stories and make stories up and convince people of things that weren't true.
You were a liar.
Kind of, yeah. A great liar.
Yeah.
A good liar.
Yeah.
I'm not as good a liar now as I was then.
Yeah.
Because it's, the lying thing is something you have to try and overcome, I guess.
Sure.
And I try and put it into a framework where I can call it a profession now, which is...
it's called acting.
Yeah. I can't say that I have a method.
No.
I don't think I do. I mean, there is method, but I find that it constantly shifts and changes, and I think that that's a good thing. I'm not sure. I was educated in the way of theater craft and stuff was a very British way of doing things, which meant technique. Yeah, they're all in favor of actually feeling a real emotion and doing that. Yeah. But they just say you're not going to be able to summon that every time, and even if you could summon that every time, you would die young.
Yeah.
So that you have to be able to at least fake it well.
How do you deal with actors on that way?
Well, you choose the ones who you want to be with for a start. I never make them read or anything. I doubt that you do either.
No, I don't like it.
I don't understand
that. I get
that.
embarrassed.
I get embarrassed.
And when they cry in a reading, I get like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh,
you want to go and...
You want to leave because you feel you shouldn't be there.
Well, it seems like you're doing something terribly wrong. You feel like some kind of a, I mean, you feel as if you're committing a crime.
Yeah.
And it's kind of slimy. It's kind of prostitution.
Sure.
But that, I think, is even beyond. It's just kind of watching someone go through the act of prostituting themselves. There's something very almost unbearable about it.
I find it. All the actresses I've spoken to, all without prompting, come up with the same thing of how detestable is the casting process. Not the old casting couch thing, just the thing of not having someone good to read with, and being expected to come in and emote and look sexy and the whole thing in front of a bunch of strangers.
It's not fair.
It's perverse.
Well, it's not fair on them either.
No.
It's asking them to do something, and you don't find out anything from it.
Nothing.
You find out nothing from it. This is the main reason why I really hate it. You can get them in there, and somebody might do just a slap-up job for that day, but that's what they've aimed at. That day, you have to be able to figure out whether they're going to be any good for 3 months while you're working with them. And the best way to do that is to get them in the room, sit them down, and it may be uncomfortable, as it always is getting to know someone to begin with, and they think they're going to have to read, so you tell them, well, to begin with, I don't want you to read anything, and they sort of relax a little, and you say, no, I'm not making anybody read, so they don't feel like they're being outcast.
No, that's the big thing, yeah.
And I don't think it tells you anything except the fact that, well, hey, they can read. I was fortunate. I only had to do it one time, ever.
As an actor?
As an actor, when I was starting out on a career. I only had to do it once because I was really bad at it. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. What happened was, I went into this place and it was, the guy said, read this. Can you memorize this in like 10 minutes and come back and do it? And he gave me this script with, I mean, it was like 2 full pages of like complete, like a soliloquy, like a dialogue. Not well written either.
No.
I said, just give me a little hint about who this guy is and why he's saying this stuff. So they gave me like a thumbnail. And I thought, okay. So I went into the next room and, I tried to comprehend it as best I could. And then I just came back, they turned a video camera on me, and I just sat there and tried to do it. I didn't do it according to the page or anything, but I just started off and improvised the whole thing around it, which is all you could do in 10 minutes, I mean.
And got the job?
Got it, yeah. I was so far away from the technical aspects of reading and doing things within some parameter that is given in audition processes that I thought it was hopeless anyway, so I thought, fuck it, threw it away and was relaxed. And that's the best way to find out whether or not this actor, actress will suit your requirement, is to have them relax. And then you can talk about the fucking weather. And you'll know within 15 minutes.
If this is a person you want to work with. Yeah. Christopher Walken, first time I ever did a casting session in America, terrified me.
Me too.
I mean, fucking hell. I came to meet the guy. They said, oh, he's flying in from God knows where.
Yeah, but he didn't need a plane, right? It's like
he didn't need a plane. He came in, he was doing all the kind of Scorsese stuff. And I said, have you had a chance to read the script? And he looked at me and he said, do you like my face? And I went, yes. And he said, well, that's fucking great, because if you don't, get De Niro. Fuck you, I'm out of here. And stood up and walked out. And everyone said, well, that I think was quite a good meeting.
No, he came to see me on a rooftop in New York. I said, hey, can I talk to you? And he said, sure. He floated in, sideways, through a crowd of people. He was wearing black. And it was like one of those old vampire movies where they don't walk, but they glide. And he was a dancer, you know, so he has he's very, you know, graceful.
Yeah.
And he moved sideways, and he just sat down in a chair next to me. And it kind of frightened me. And he's a very smart guy. And we started talking, and I didn't, you know, say much of anything about reading the script, nothing. I just started talking about the Middle Ages. And he began to talk tortures. And we swapped tortures, because I'd read this book on torture. And I tried to recall some of the most heinous things I'd ever read in this book. And he was like, oh, and he'd try and top it. And and my assistant was there, and he left because he couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
The air had turned cold. And then he left, and I wanted to leave. And because I knew that I didn't want to work with him.
Yeah.
And he was getting scary.
Yeah.
And then I turned around, and it was on top of the Peninsula Hotel. I turned around to avoid his steady gaze at one point, and I was looking at a building with the top of the sixes on it. So there was a huge illuminated triple six in red. Yeah. And I went from that to that to that, and he started smiling. And I thought, oh no, Chris Walken is the Antichrist, you know?
There's certain trends that seem to kind of float together, which is, and one of the questions that keeps coming up is, why are there no decent parts for women? Why are women just completely underused in storytelling within this system known as Hollywood? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the storytelling has always been a kind of a male medium.
Always in history?
Always.
Yeah.
From the start. They were the guys who did. I mean, women just think differently to us, and that's a good thing. And there are things about the way they think and about the way they look at things that we cannot possibly understand. In fact, it's far above us, beyond us, to try and like get a hook on it. Because I've tried, and I'm a little wiser because I can kind of allow for it more now because I understand that it exists. But totally understanding it, I will never. And I think the male of the species is more adept at the telling of a story. That's why you go to any bar, it's not women telling jokes. It's guys telling jokes.
Right.
Women are notoriously bad joke tellers, most of them. Some of them are good. Some of them have a capacity for it. But I think, just generally, I think men are better at it, at telling stories, and when they tell a story, it has to issue from themselves and their own experience. And it's very hard, if most of the storytellers around are men, to actually have a good story about a woman.
Right.
I think. It's done pretty well at times.
Even if we go back to, say, the 40s, 50s,
Yeah.
early 60s, just of cinema, forget literature, although the balance would have been still in the favor of men in terms of just number of roles and so on, there were far more, I mean, there were some very powerful actresses who were taken incredibly, in terms of box office, were taken as seriously as men. And
like Joan Crawford.
Exactly. Any number of them, actually, you know?
But she used to display a male point of view. It was very interesting. She was very masculine on screen.
Right.
And is it that women are trying, they're saying the parts aren't good because they're not masculine? I'm never quite sure about that.
If you look at the, you know, the scripts that are floating around right now, and the movies that are being made, they're woefully short on interesting female parts.
Yes, they
Women
are.
tend to kind of pop up and sort of endorse men, take their clothes off if they're in a good enough shape, and leave.
Yeah.
And one of the actresses I spoke to, actually, I came up with what I thought was a pretty smart thing, which was saying, I said, at what point do you see the decline in women's roles? He said, the moment women took their clothes off, and it became a given, then seemed to be a lack of respect and a dropping off of interest in other points of interest about women. You know?
There's a producer I know, successful producer. I will not mention names, but his whole opinion about women on film, from beginning to end, is very brief. He says, women on film, either naked or dead. Both is better. And it's like, whoa, ooh. The man has got a spiritual malady for a start. I mean, the scary thing is that I think a lot of people think that. Maybe not to that extreme. There are people, well-meaning people, that, and you find that the woman and the woman's role in a film becomes some sort of just appendage to the man. And I can see why they're not too fulfilled in doing that.
You're here, basically, right? You live here. You're part
Most of the time,
now.
Yeah, really. I guess, yeah. I integrated.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's pretty much based on money, the system here.
It is.
Yeah.
The system is completely based on money.
Yeah.
The studio system.
Yeah.
To a degree, I think the way I hook into the system is based on money.
Yeah. I mean, you've managed, you're a rare bird. We still think of you as an actor. But in fact, that's just quite a small part of what you do now, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the part...
I mean, when somebody told me just how many movies you'd produced, I was stunned. I mean, you turn over, don't you?
Quite a few. I mean, we're pretty prolific for a perceived vanity company.
Right.
Which I think a lot of people start film companies and then they don't really do anything with them. But this gets into the act sometimes, not always successfully either.
Yeah.
I mean, we've made some horrible little pictures, but we've made some good ones too.
Yeah.
And so there's a pride in that, and I enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
And
How active are you?
Pretty active.
You've got a good team, haven't you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people here with good heads on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And nobody's immune from making a mistake, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we make plenty of them. We call them school fees.
Do you?
School fees, every time we get ripped off or make a big mistake, or, you know, and it costs you.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, it cost you $2 million or $4 million.
So when you get a project that your company's going to do, do they vary? Are some ones that you just think should be made as a film, or is it pretty much financially based, your judgment?
No, it's not solely financially based. I think that there's an art in marrying the two.
Sure, yeah.
And if you can find that balance and satisfy both requirements, then you are successful within the industry.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're not successful
Yeah.
if you don't meet one of those requirements. You're just successful within this industry.
So what would you say was the good news about Hollywood right now, being very actively in the middle of it?
I think
what's right about it?
The best thing about it is that you know, I grew up, and I guess you grew up in an industry that happened somewhere else. And I succumb to the charm of film and filmmaking, and I love it, and I love telling a story, and I love everything about it. Even the crappy things about it I kind of like. And it kind of, I guess it gets almost to a question of like kind of a religion. Mecca for filmmakers is this industry here. It's where there's the biggest pool. It's wherever, it's the watering hole where everyone comes to see, to measure up, to include themselves in the pool, their talent, and that collective thing. It's like you go to the smorgasbord to feed your need to work, and your need to tell stories, and your need to express yourself, whatever form it takes.
Is there a collective ethos, or somebody once said my problem was I didn't understand the social contract here. I now understand what that means.
Yeah.
Do you understand it?
The social contract?
Yeah.
I think I do.
Yeah. What is it for you?
The social contract. You can't get mad. You can't get mad. You can't let it get you, because you have to make a deal with everyone else, and it's almost unspoken that you are going to be fucked over at some point by people who you may have done something nice for. And it may happen that by circumstance, or even very purposefully, that you fuck someone over. But that shouldn't get in the way of you being able to sit down and have fun with them. Am I on the right track?
Absolutely.
You can't build a resentment about it. You have to still try and love those people.
Yeah.
Because that's the way they're thinking.
Because it ain't personal.
No, it's not personal. They don't really mean to hurt you.
No.
Not really. I don't quite understand. Well, I mean, there's a lot of motivations for why it happens. Yes, many.
I mean, money will make you do stuff as well, won't it? I mean,
Yes.
one, them, us,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, well, whoever.
If there's many millions riding on a decision, it's hard to be philosophical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very hard. Very hard to be, you know, you have to choose what level of integrity you're coming in at. And
Okay.
and I've often felt it. I've sat there, and I have felt the knife slipped firmly in between my shoulder blades and tried to have it shoved through the other side through my heart. And I've actually felt the whole thing, and I've gone, ah! Wait till next week, you know? Or I'll think, you fucking, and you'll resent it for a little while, then you have to let it go. Otherwise, you'll eat yourself alive here. And I think it takes that kind of cockroach resilience to survive in this town. I mean, this is a bizarre place. And it doesn't take very long, and I'm sure you've experienced this if you've stayed here for any length of time. You come in, you're fresh from the outside, you're off the boat, from the farm, still got shit on your shoes, you're in here, people are charmed by that you've still got shit on your shoes. They're charmed by the fresh approach you bring to it, and that's a real thing. But they're also stroking the shit out of you, you know, licking you all over. And that's kind of good for you, too.
It's great.
But it doesn't take very long before you realize, or before it gets to you. It's cascading on you all the time. You can't get away from certain attitudes, from certain modes of behavior that this town and the industry dictate. And no matter how strong you are, when you come in off the farm with those convictions and a certain line of attack, no matter how strong you are going to be affected by this place. No, it's going to divert you from where you were going.
Sure.
You're going to be diverted. When I came over here, I was in my mid-20s.
Right.
The first time I really came over here. You know, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on, because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
Right.
And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me.
They don't.
And And I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it that were like, surely that couldn't be, because the whole place can't be like, Weird Town, where the stranger wanders in and all the people are in the bar and they all shut up when he looks at them, and they tell you don't go into the house on the hill, and it's like that. And then you go away and you think, no, I was wrong. I mean, that's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like. Could it? And then you find out later on the track that you were exactly on track with a lot of this stuff. Not specifically on track, but that you could, that some of your worst nightmares were real at the time. And you think, now this is what I mean by actually starting to swim up or downstream with the rest of the salmon, eventually, if you stay here long enough. You'll find yourself doing that. And you have to... There's a way of doing it without doing it. That takes time. And it takes relaxation.
Not being uncomfortable about...
Not being uncomfortable. Realizing it for what it is.
Projecting.
Understanding what it is. Once you understand it, well, then you're not afraid of it anymore, so you can just walk around it and through it and then get on with what you tried to get on with in the first place. A place like this can humiliate you. And it can humiliate you, it can be humbling. I mean, it does rip your life to pieces.
Does it?
If you'll let it.
Yeah.
And it's always pounding at the walls. It's these little guys, these little heathens with no soul downstairs with horns on their head with a battering ram trying to, like, beat your walls in.
Yeah.
But that's your own devils,
Yeah. I mean, as a matter of interest, do you think it's easier because you're an outsider who came in?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because it was glaring to me because I was an outsider who came in. But who isn't an outsider coming into this?
Our tape's coming to an end, so I just want to ask you a couple of stupid questions. Just really quick off the top of your head. Give me 5 movies that you like. Not the best in the world, just...
5 movies I like. I hate this question. I can never answer it.
Okay.
I'll never be able to do it in the time allotted.
Okay. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you.
Yeah.